The sun hung low over the Los Angeles horizon, casting long orange streaks across the quiet highway. A few cars hummed past the old roadside gas station, the kind where time seemed to move slower, where the faint smell of gasoline mixed with the evening air. Sandra Bullock pulled in, her black SUV gliding to a stop beside the pump. Dressed casually, jeans, a light jacket, hair tied back, she looked like any other passerby stopping for gas after a long day. She smiled politely at the station attendant, inserted her card, and began to refuel. It was peaceful. For a moment. Then the distant rumble of engines shattered the calm. 3 bikers rolled into the station, their engines growling like thunder. Leather jackets, bandanas, loud laughter, the kind that turned heads. They parked near Sandra's car, too close on purpose. One of them, a tall man with tattoos crawling up his neck, smirked. "Well, well, if it isn't Hollywood herself," he sneered, his tone dripping with mockery. Sandra froze for a second, forcing a polite smile. "Excuse me, I just need to finish up here," she said softly. But the men weren't interested in letting her be. They exchanged grins, circling the car, pretending to admire it while making crude remarks under their breath. One of them leaned a bit too close, eyes glinting with arrogance. "What's a fancy actress doing here without her bodyguards?" he taunted. Sandra's hand trembled slightly as she tried to keep calm. "Please, I just want to get home," she said. Around them, a few onlookers began to notice. Heads turned. Phones subtly lifted. Attention began to thicken the air. But not far away, maybe 2 pumps down, stood a man wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, quietly filling up his motorcycle. He didn't move, didn't speak, but his eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding before him. Keanu Reeves. He watched as the bikers continued their cruel show, his jaw tightening, the calm expression on his face giving away nothing. Yet behind those dark lenses, a storm was beginning to build, and then came the moment that would soon make headlines around the world. What happened next left everyone at that gas station completely speechless. Sandra tried to keep her composure as the bikers closed in. She had dealt with paparazzi, crowds, even rude fans before, but this was different. This wasn't fame. It was intimidation, the kind that made the air heavy and the heart pound faster. "Come on, don't be shy," one biker jeered, leaning on her car. "How about a picture with us? You owe your fans that much, right?" Sandra took a step back. "I'm not comfortable with that, please," she replied, her voice controlled but trembling at the edges. The tallest one chuckled. "Oh, she's too good for us now," he said, looking at his friends. "Look at that fancy tone. Thinks she's better than everyone else?" The others laughed loudly, exaggerated, mocking, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. A family sitting in their car stared, unsure whether to get involved. The station attendant hesitated at the counter, pretending to clean the window but clearly nervous. Keanu, still standing beside his motorcycle, lowered the fuel nozzle slowly. His face remained calm, but his eyes were locked on the scene. He could see Sandra's hand trembling as she reached for her phone, maybe to call for help, maybe just to look busy. But the bikers noticed and snickered. "Whoa, no need to call anyone," one said sharply. "We're just talking." The hostility in his voice sent a ripple through the small crowd. A few people began recording quietly from a distance. The familiar glow of smartphone cameras reflected in the bikers' chrome handlebars. Sandra swallowed hard, looking for a way out. Her voice softened, pleading, "I really don't want any trouble. Please, just let me go." The leader stepped closer, invading her space, then smiled for the camera. "We'll let you go after that." Her eyes darted toward the street. No security, no police, no help coming, and then a calm, steady voice echoed from behind them. "Hey, step back." It wasn't loud, but it carried authority, the kind that silenced noise instantly. The bikers turned, annoyed. "Who's asking?" One sneered. The man removed his helmet, setting it gently on the pump. His movements were deliberate, unhurried, controlled. Underneath the cap and glasses, the faint glow of recognition began to stir among the bystanders. Keanu Reeves. He didn't posture or raise his fists. He just looked at the man, eyes cold, voice low. "She asked you to stop." "That's enough." The laughter faded. For the first time, the bikers hesitated. The moment hung heavy in the air, the calm before the inevitable storm. The air turned still. Engines idled softly, the faint hiss of the gas pumps the only sound between them. Sandra froze, eyes flicking from the bikers to the stranger who had just spoken. Keanu took a step forward, quiet and composed. His voice hadn't been loud, but it carried the kind of weight that instantly shifted the mood. One biker scoffed, smirking. "And who the hell are you supposed to be? Her knight in shining armor?" Keanu didn't answer. He simply moved a little closer, placing himself between Sandra and the three men. His calm gaze didn't waver. "I said she asked you to stop." "You should listen," he repeated, tone firm but steady. "Not a threat, just a fact." The leader of the group laughed, glancing at his friends. "Oh, we got a tough guy here." He stepped forward, deliberately bumping his shoulder into Keanu's. "You gonna make us?" Keanu didn't flinch. "No," he said quietly. "But you should think about what you're doing. You're scaring a woman who's done nothing to you." The biker's smirk faltered slightly, just for a second, before he turned it into another sneer. "You think you're gonna lecture me, man?" Sandra's heart raced. She wanted to shout, to tell Keanu to just walk away before it got worse. But something about his composure, his unshakable stillness, made her believe he knew exactly what he was doing. Phones were up now. Half a dozen people were filming. The tension at the gas station was electric. One wrong move and it would explode. The leader spat on the ground. "You don't tell me what to do." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "Then I'll just ask you one more time. Let her go." The biker's jaw tightened. He took a threatening step forward and until Keanu's expression changed ever so slightly. The easy calm in his eyes shifted into something colder, sharper. The quiet look of someone who's seen real violence and doesn't need to prove anything. It wasn't a glare. It was something deeper, a look that said, "I don't want to hurt you, but I could." That was enough. The biker hesitated. The silence was suffocating now. Even the rumble of nearby engines seemed to fade. Sandra stood behind Keanu, her voice trembling. "Please, let's just leave." Keanu nodded slightly but didn't move yet. His focus remained on the men. The leader cursed under his breath and finally stepped back, motioning to his friends. "Whatever, man. Not worth it." They started to move away, slowly, begrudgingly, but not before muttering a few last words. Keanu didn't respond. He kept his eyes on them until they were a safe distance away. Only then did he exhale, turning slightly to Sandra. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, breath shaky. "Yes, thank you." But the story was far from over, because just as the bikers began to walk off, one of them turned back, angry, humiliated, and shouted, "You think you're a hero or something?" Keanu looked at him calmly. "No," he said. "Just a person who knows when something's wrong." The biker froze, words dying on his tongue. And from that moment, the crowd knew they were witnessing something they'd never forget. The tension at the gas station didn't disappear, it evolved. The bikers had stepped back, but their pride was burning hotter than their engines. They didn't like being told off in front of a crowd, especially by a man who looked so calm, so unshaken. Keanu stood steady between Sandra and the men, his posture relaxed but alert. He wasn't looking for a fight, he was preventing one. But the bikers didn't see it that way. The leader spat on the pavement, glaring. "You think you can just walk in and tell us what to do?" he barked. Keanu's voice was almost gentle. "I didn't walk in. I was already here. And I didn't tell you what to do, I asked you to show some respect." The man laughed, unshort, humorless. "Respect? You don't know who you're talking to." Keanu tilted his head, almost pitying. "Neither do you." Sandra, standing a few steps behind him, could feel her heart pounding. She'd seen him in action movies, confident, composed, untouchable. But seeing this quiet strength in real life was something else entirely. The bikers shifted uneasily. One of them, younger, uncertain, muttered, "Man, maybe we should just go." The leader shot him a sharp look. "Shut up." But the crowd was growing now. Cars slowed to a stop along the roadside. People whispered, phones raised, filming. The murmurs spread quickly through the onlookers like wind over dry leaves. "Wait, is that who I think it is?" someone whispered. A teenager near the back of the crowd squinted through his camera lens. His jaw dropped. "Dude, that's Keanu Reeves." The whisper became a wave. "That's him!" "No way." "Oh my God, it is." The realization rippled through everyone, and except the bikers who still hadn't turned their brains from anger to recognition. The leader barked out a bitter laugh. What, you some kind of actor or something? Sandra couldn't help it. A faint, disbelieving smile crossed her face. The irony was almost cinematic. Keanu didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence itself was enough. The teen shouted from the back, "Bro, that's John Wick." That was the breaking point. The laughter stopped. The smirks faded. The leader blinked, looking at Keanu again, really looking this time. The calm eyes, the familiar jawline, the quiet authority that suddenly made sense. His expression shifted, from arrogance to unease. You're Keanu Reeves?" he muttered. Keanu gave a small, polite nod. "Just a guy getting gas," he said softly. The crowd chuckled quietly, but the message was clear and sharp. The leader's bravado crumbled. He rubbed the back of his neck, glancing at his friends, trying to find a way to save face. "We were just messing around, man. Didn't mean anything." Keanu stepped closer, and not threatening, just firm. "Messing around shouldn't make people afraid," he said. "You don't need to scare someone to feel strong." The biker swallowed hard. The younger one nodded silently, eyes down. Sandra exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. Relief washed over her, not just because it was ending, but because someone had reminded the world what decency looked like. For a few long seconds, nobody moved. The crowd stayed silent. Even the air seemed to pause, suspended in the gravity of the moment. Keanu turned slightly to Sandra. "You okay now?" She smiled faintly. "Thanks to you." The crowd began to applaud softly, hesitant at first, then louder. And for the first time that evening, the sun seemed to shine again. For a moment it looked like the tension had ended. The crowd was quiet but visibly moved, whispering in awe as they realized what had just happened. Keanu had handled everything without aggression, calm, polite, but firm. Sandra stood close by, still shaken but safe. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. Keanu gave her a faint smile. "Maybe not, but someone had to." The bikers lingered awkwardly near their bikes. The younger one kept glancing at Keanu, embarrassed, uneasy. But the leader, red-faced and desperate to reclaim his pride, muttered under his breath, "Hero boy thinks he's teaching us manners now." Keanu heard it. He didn't react immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket, took out a pair of sunglasses, and slowly put them on. The smallest gesture, but somehow it made the man flinch. Then Keanu spoke, calm as ever. "Respect doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." The biker laughed, hollow and defensive. "Spare me the lecture, Hollywood. You think people like you understand real life? We live it every day." Keanu turned to face him completely. The crowd fell silent again. "I do understand," he said evenly. "I've seen how people treat each other when they forget what decency is. You think it's power, but it's just fear pretending to be strength." The words hit harder than any shout could have. Even Sandra felt the weight of them. The man's bravado cracked. "You don't know me, man. You don't know what I've been through." Keanu nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't. But whatever you've been through, it doesn't give you the right to make someone else feel small, especially someone who's done nothing to you." The biker stared at him, jaw tight. His friends shifted awkwardly beside their bikes, clearly uncomfortable now. The crowd had grown. People from nearby stores, passing cars slowing down. Everyone was watching. Keanu's voice softened but didn't lose its weight. "You wanted attention. Well, now you have it. The question is this really how you want to be seen?" The biker's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked around. The phones recording, the eyes judging. The woman he had tried to humiliate now standing tall beside a man who had said everything without raising his voice. For the first time, he looked ashamed. Sandra's expression softened. She didn't hate them. She pitied them. One of the bikers murmured, "Let's just go, man." The leader hesitated, glaring at Keanu one last time. But there was no fight left in him. He swung a leg over his bike, muttering, "Whatever, dude." They started their engines. The roar filled the air for a moment, then faded as they sped off down the road, leaving behind nothing but the echo of their own embarrassment. When the noise finally died, the gas station was silent again. The tension evaporated into stillness. Sandra exhaled, almost laughing from relief. "You really do live up to your movies, don't you?" she said, smiling through tears. Keanu chuckled softly. "No, In the movies, I fight bad guys. In real life, I just try to stop them before it gets that far." The crowd clapped again, louder this time. It wasn't just admiration. It was respect. A man near the front called out, "That's real courage right there." Someone else added, "We need more people like you." Keanu raised a hand humbly. "No," he said. "You don't need more people like me. You just need more people who care enough to do something when it matters." Sandra smiled, proud, grateful, and still a little stunned. "You could have walked away, but you didn't." Keanu glanced toward the road where the bikers had disappeared. Sometimes walking away is peace, but sometimes silence becomes permission. The line hung in the air, raw and powerful. The phones kept recording, capturing every second of his calm, unwavering presence. A quiet man standing up for decency in a world that too often looked away. Sandra looked at him one more time and said softly, "Thank you, Keanu, for reminding everyone what kindness looks like when it's brave." Keanu smiled gently. "Always." The crowd applauded once more, this time with genuine emotion, and somewhere in that moment, amidst the clapping and murmurs, a teenager whispered to his friend, "Man, that's what a real hero looks like." The gas station slowly returned to normal, but something in the air still vibrated. The crowd lingered, reluctant to leave, talking in hushed voices about what they'd just witnessed. Sandra stood beside Keanu, calm now, though her heart still beat a little faster than usual. She turned to him with quiet gratitude. "You didn't just protect me," she said softly. "You reminded them, and everyone watching, what decency looks like." Keanu gave a faint smile. "It's not about reminding. It's about remembering. We forget too easily." Just as he finished speaking, the distant wail of sirens approached. Within seconds, 2 police cruisers pulled into the gas station, lights flashing red and blue across the cracked pavement. A uniformed officer stepped out first, tall, young, professional. Behind him came another, older, heavier built, with the kind of scowl that seemed permanent. Sandra tensed up. "Oh no, they're going to think—" Keanu raised a hand gently. "It's all right." The first officer walked over briskly, scanning the crowd. "We got multiple reports of a disturbance," he said. "Anyone care to explain what's going on?" Before Keanu or Sandra could respond, one of the older bikers, still lingering at the edge of the parking lot, perhaps hoping to twist the story, shouted, "Yeah, that guy over there. He started it." He pointed straight at Keanu. The crowd erupted in protest. "That's not true. He was protecting her. You should have seen what happened." The officer looked between the voices, confused. The older cop, Officer Briggs, frowned, striding toward Keanu. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some ID," he said sharply. Sandra stepped forward quickly. "Wait, you don't understand, ma'am," Briggs interrupted. "I'll talk to you in a moment. Right now I'm speaking to him." Keanu stayed calm, as always. He pulled out his wallet, handing over his license without a word. Briggs glanced at it, then back up, his expression skeptical. "Keanu Reeves, huh?" he said dryly. "That's supposed to mean something?" Sandra blinked in disbelief. "Are you serious?" The younger officer, standing nearby, suddenly froze. His eyes widened as he recognized the face in front of him. "Wait, sir. This is Keanu Reeves," Briggs frowned. "The actor?" The younger one nodded enthusiastically. "You said the Keanu Reeves." A ripple of realization spread through the crowd again, though most already knew. Briggs's posture stiffened, his voice faltering for the first time. "Oh, well, Sandra crossed her arms, unimpressed. "Maybe next time you should listen before assuming who's guilty." Briggs muttered something under his breath, clearly uncomfortable. The younger officer stepped in, taking control. "Mr. Reeves, Ms. Bullock, are you both all right?" Sandra nodded. "We're fine now, but it could have gone a lot worse." The officer nodded respectfully. "We saw some of the videos online already. They're spreading fast. People are calling you a hero." Keanu shook his head immediately. "I'm not a hero. I just didn't want someone to be humiliated in front of strangers." His humility only made the crowd admire him more. Briggs shuffled awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. Look, Mr. Reeves, I didn't mean any disrespect earlier." Keanu looked at him for a long moment. Then, in that calm, level voice that carried more weight than shouting ever could, he said, "Disrespect doesn't always come from words. Sometimes it's in how quick we are to assume. Briggs's eyes dropped. There was no anger in Keanu's tone, just truth. The kind that hit harder than blame. Sandra smiled faintly beside him, proud of his grace. The younger officer nodded. We'll make sure this report reflects the truth. And those bikers will be getting citations for harassment. Keanu nodded. That's fair, just make sure they learn something from it. We don't need more punishment, and we need understanding. That line silenced everyone again because it wasn't about ego. It was about empathy. The flashing lights painted the station in streaks of red and blue, reflecting off the polished tanks and Keanu's calm face. He glanced around at the onlookers, the people filming, watching, whispering. Everyone has a choice, he said softly, almost to himself. We can add more anger to the world. Or we can add respect. Sandra looked at him, eyes glistening. You always did have the right words, Keanu smiled faintly. Only when they're needed. The younger officer extended a hand respectfully. Thank you for handling this the way you did. Not everyone could have stayed that calm. Keanu shook his hand humbly. Calm isn't always easy, but chaos never helps. As the police finished speaking with witnesses, the bikers were escorted away. Not handcuffed, but clearly remorseful. The crowd slowly began to disperse, murmuring about what they'd seen. Sandra turned to Keanu once more. You could have embarrassed them. You could have yelled. But you didn't. Keanu looked out toward the horizon, the last traces of sunset fading behind the mountains. Anger's easy, he said quietly. Grace takes strength, she smiled. And you've got plenty of that. He looked back at her with his usual humility. Maybe, but tonight wasn't about strength. It was about reminding people what it looks like when someone still cares. The camera phones were still rolling, capturing every second of his final words. And as the cruisers pulled away, the world already had its next headline waiting to explode. The night after the gas station incident, the internet erupted. Videos from different angles flooded every platform: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. The thumbnail was the same in all of them. Keanu Reeves standing calmly between a terrified woman and a group of angry bikers. The caption? Keanu Reeves defends a stranger and wins the internet again. Within hours, millions of views poured in. The comment sections overflowed with admiration. He's the last real gentleman in Hollywood. Protect this man at all costs. Keanu doesn't act humble. He is humble. Sandra Bullock sat in her kitchen the next morning, scrolling through the videos. Every clip, every replay made her eyes glisten with emotion. She wasn't used to being saved, not like that. Not with quiet strength and no expectation of reward. Then her phone buzzed. Keanu Reeves, incoming call. She smiled softly before answering. You've gone viral again, hero. Keanu chuckled lightly on the other end. Yeah, I noticed. I woke up to a dozen missed calls, a few hundred messages, and apparently a hashtag, Sandra laughed. Be like Keanu is trending #1. He sighed, a little embarrassed. I wish it didn't have to take a viral video for people to care about each other. There was a pause. She could hear the sincerity in his tone. Maybe, she said gently, but sometimes it takes one reminder, one real moment, to wake people up. By afternoon, the story had reached the major news outlets. CNN, BBC, and countless YouTube commentators replayed the footage frame by frame, analyzing every detail. The moment Keanu stepped forward, the way he never raised his voice, the subtle power in his calmness. Every gesture told a story, and people felt it. At a press conference outside a charity event that evening, reporters swarmed him, microphones outstretched. Mr. Reeves, what was going through your mind when you saw those bikers? Did you know it was Sandra Bullock? Do you consider yourself a hero? Keanu lifted his hand slightly, signaling for calm. His voice, steady and kind, carried effortlessly through the crowd. I'm not a hero, he said simply. I just saw someone being mistreated. And I think anyone should step in when they can. Not to fight, but to stop the fight before it starts. A hush fell over the reporters. The words hit deeper than any headline could. One journalist called out, But Mr. Reeves, your composure, and how did you stay so calm? He smiled faintly. I don't think anger fixes what cruelty breaks. Sometimes peace is louder. That line, peace is louder, became the internet's new mantra. It appeared on shirts, captions, fan art, even protest signs within days. Meanwhile, the bikers involved publicly released an apology video. The leader, a broad-shouldered man named Travis, looked directly into the camera, visibly ashamed. "I didn't know who she was," he said. "But that shouldn't matter. No one deserves to be treated like that. And Mr. Reeves, thank you for handling it with more grace than I did." The comments were surprisingly forgiving. People didn't just cheer for Keanu. They praised the apology. It had become a full-circle lesson, from humiliation to humility. Sandra watched the clip later that night and whispered, "He changed them without breaking them." That same evening, Keanu sat in his modest living room surrounded by quiet. No entourage, no flashing cameras. Just him, his cup of tea, and a single thought lingering in his mind. He opened his laptop, went live on Instagram for the first time in years. Within seconds, tens of thousands joined. He smiled softly at the screen. "Hey everyone. I'm not great at this social media thing, but I wanted to say something. From me directly." He paused, eyes thoughtful. "I've seen all your messages and I appreciate the kindness, but I think what matters more is the why. Why did it move you? Why did it go viral?" The comment scrolled rapidly. "Because you cared. Because you were calm. Because you reminded us of humanity." He nodded slowly. "See, that's the point. We shouldn't wait for someone famous to show kindness before we do the same. You can do it every day. At work, at school, even at a gas station." His tone grew gentler. "Sometimes life gives you a moment. One decision. You can make it about ego or empathy. I hope you choose empathy. It lasts longer." The chat flooded with hearts and thank yous. Thousands wrote, "This is the message we needed. Keanu, you make humanity feel real again." Sandra texted him right after, "You just turned a moment into a movement." He smiled when he read it, replying simply, "Not a movement, just a reminder." Days later, one more video surfaced, not of the confrontation, but of Keanu quietly helping a homeless man outside a convenience store. No cameras, no attention. He didn't know someone was recording. The caption read, "Even when no one's watching and he still cares." That video didn't need words. It only needed one line in the description. Because peace really is louder. And just like that, what started as one tense night at a gas station became something far bigger. A moment that reminded the world what true character looks like when no one expects it.